this is, that negative thought you've been having, and I just can't let you try and change yourself without a fight. So, go ahead and just turn the show off, okay? And, yeah, everything's still fine.
This is Blindsight with your host, Bill Lundgren, an AINC original podcast.
Are you serious?
We're not holding back truth. We're here to help you heal and become the best you possible. Here's the chair. Here's the pillow. Here's Bill.
So, out of all of that, no, you got out and everything was fine, and no more attention to mental illness issues, right?
I wish. Yeah, I think one of the nurses said it better. She was like, on one of my final days there, she said, the real work starts when you get home. And that's so true, because you're all of a sudden back in the environment that I sort of equated it to her, like, and I don't know if this is completely accurate, but sort of like an addict wanting to use. And, you take them out of their familiar environment, you might break some of those habits and help them with better thinking. But when they're back in that environment where they used before, or in my case, where I had suicidal thoughts all the time and was planning to die, then that gets a lot harder, and the voices of the nurses kind of fade in your head, and you only have you to be able to keep you safe. And that's hard.
What did you need from your family when you got out? And did they know how to respond?
That's a really good question. For a lot of people, I think it was awkward. I think they didn't know what to do or say. So sometimes they wanted to do too much. They wanted to always be there when I kind of needed space, or others just had no idea what to say. I think probably the most frustrating thing that people would say was like, "Oh, but okay, you're out of the hospital now. You're all better now."
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for assuming that. But no, I didn't go in to like have a broken arm repaired or something like that. It's a little bit more ongoing, I guess, than that.
Mm-hmm. Well, looking back on, this time that you talk about as a teenager coming up to the hospital, how do you think those around you could have made a difference? And what did they finally do after you were out that made a difference for you? Were they two different things, or was it the same thing you needed from them both times?
Wow. I think that it was so overwhelming for them. I think, again, like we talked about earlier, the early intervention would have been really critical for me, and I did get it to a point. I was in therapy. I had a social worker who was really great in junior high. But when she moved away, I was like, well, I don't want to see anybody else. So it was partially me too, because I'd built that rapport with her. But in terms of my family, I think for them, and they did a lot right. I'm not saying that they didn't, but I think, again, that stigma, that discomfort.
That's right, to even talk about it.
If we don't talk about it, it'll go away.
Yeah.
And maybe because, like, when I came out of the hospital, because people knew about it, because I was fairly open about it fairly soon afterwards, so people did find out, because I chose to share my story. I think that also helped my family and my loved ones to feel more comfortable talking about it with me. They were aware, a couple of them were aware of my safety plan that had been made. And sometimes, so now they will notice that I'm spiraling sometimes even before I do.
Oh, really?
And I think it's so critical to catch that spiral right as it stops before it just picks up steam and there's nothing left that you can do. I think there's so many things that you can do if you catch it soon enough. And unfortunately, that just seems to come with experience and with the knowledge of like, okay, these are the triggers. These are the early signs. So sometimes, yeah, they will catch it even before I do and be like, hey, do you think you're spiraling? Do you think you need to do something differently?
Well, I think what you're saying is that you changed and you gave them permission to pay attention and made it less frightening because you weren't, you had come to some resolution with it. So it's kind of a combined thing. They needed to be taught by you as to what, that it was okay to talk about mental illness, talk about, as you say, spiraling and point out something that you weren't frightened of it anymore. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And, my comfort around it helped with their comfort around it before then, because I wanted to get away with it, because I didn't want to be interrupted. I was more secretive, I guess. I wasn't I think I did things that if people really knew what to look for, like with my aunt, with the ER doctor, they would have seen. But I think there's a lot of like misinformation even still around what that looks like. And sometimes you feel like you're sending out all these signals, and it's so hard to say to somebody, I need help.
Right.
So you're sending all these signals and nobody picks up on it.
Mm-hmm. And it's probably the toughest thing to say, I need help, because somehow we feel weaker when we ask for help, and really takes a lot of strength to say, I need help.
Absolutely.
And to go for it, and to, the idea of even going to a therapist is just so scary for so many people. It's, I'm not that bad.
Yeah. I think people think that by the time you get to a therapist, you're seriously mentally ill. And I think that's really unfortunate. And I think that would be something I would love to see changed, that it's no different than going to your family doctor if you have like a little medical concern or whatever, or even having like a annual checkup.
Right. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice if we were just uniformly getting a mental health checkup? They say, look.
Yeah, and it was it was no bigger deal.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So what I'm seeing is that you've taken this experience and using it with the same kind of empathy that you showed in your moment of crisis for the family of the person who is Code Blue. And for those who don't know Code Blue, what does that mean?
So it's basically when somebody is in acute distress. I think usually their respiration has stopped and they need immediate medical intervention to be able to survive, and that's not guaranteed by that point.
And so what you've been doing is helping people by sharing your experience and helping them to understand I don't want to say it's no big deal. It's something that needs to be attended to, but just should not, and I hate to use the word should, but say the shame is what needs to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not going to be an easy process. I never want to mislead people in that way, because it's not, in the same way that my aunt told me what was really going to happen. I want to be straight with people, but I want to tell them that they can get through it, and that it will prove to them that they are so much stronger than they thought.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you demonstrate your strength both during or when the moment happened, and now in terms of just trying to undo the kind of stigma that's attached to mental health.
For sure. And some of it is selfish for sure, because I find that that gives me a purpose. And I think without a purpose,
Right.
I was so lost.
That's a biggie. Did some of that come out in your music as well as your book?
Some of the, like the mental health things, or?
Yeah. The strength that you have.
Yeah, I think so. Like the album that came out, I guess about a year ago now. Really, my book's called Holding On by Letting Go, and my friends all kind of joked that the album should have been called Holding On by Letting Go the musical, because it really sort of delves into the same things that I talk about in the book and shares my experience going through that in a musical form as well.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about your book?
For sure. So it's sort of starts with this prologue of me in the hospital that night of the code blue, just sort of reflecting on, like, I don't know the exact moment where this all started, but it's been such a perfect storm of circumstances to lead me to this hospital bed. And then it goes back in time, and there's kind of these two parallel themes, one of them being my life as a blind person growing up, and the other being my struggles with mental health and how that sort of developed alongside me as I grew up. And so it really seeks to answer, the first half of the book really seeks to answer the question, how did this happen? Because that was a question I got so much when I got out of the hospital. People were like, well, you're so happy. How did this happen? So it really tried to go back in time and really show how somebody, I had loved ones. I had, things going for me, and I still ended up at that point. So really trying to explain to people how that happened. And then part 2 of the book is basically in journal format from my first day in the hospital until when I got released, just sharing what that was like, trying to dispel some of those misconceptions about what actually goes on behind those locked doors. And yeah, just really trying to even share, my conversations in therapy and things like that, in the hopes that it might help somebody else to feel more comfortable in seeking the help and the treatment that they need.
Well, as a blind person, is there something that therapists ought to pay attention to, besides the fact of poo-pooing or minimizing the pain that you're in, that therapists, institutions, people need to know in order to be more effective in working with someone who, like you, who's blind and dealing with a mental illness?
Yeah, I think a big thing is they're thinking about blindness as the cause. And I think it's more the factors of blindness that are some of the factors in that situation, why that person or why I was seeking support. So, it's not so much, I think sighted people often think, oh, it's because they're depressed because they don't see the sunset or their loved ones' faces, when a lot of it, the factors that go into it are more, sometimes the social isolation of being blind, sometimes the discrimination that we face, the difficulties in employment, things like that, I think are much bigger factors than, oh, you can't see the sunset, so of course you're depressed. But I think those factors are often ignored.
But I wonder, as I'm listening to you, thinking, and I guess I'm drawing from my own experience, there is an expectation that we have to perform, with our blindness. We're supposed to mask, and we may even be trained to mask some of our feelings, so people don't feel sorry for us as blind people. And then that can be in a lot of other areas of our lives, to kind of hide that part of us from the rest of the world.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And for me, also growing up on the stage, but having severe social anxiety, I learned not only through blindness, but also through music. And I guess those things kind of worked together against me, that the number one thing you can't do is show anybody you're afraid.
Oh, mm-hmm. Yeah, or you're troubled about something because that's not okay. It bums other people out.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, we want people to think of blind people as fully capable, and we don't want to, we're often perceived as society as maybe weaker than other able-bodied people, and we can't afford to let any more weakness show than what they already think. I found that was like a big part of it for me. So I got really obsessed with perfection. Like every time I left my house, I had to be 100% on all the time, and I couldn't make a mistake. If I made a mistake, I would beat myself up about it for months.
Yeah, so part of what you had to learn through therapy and whatever is to accept yourself as you are rather than constantly measuring yourself against some perfection.
Yeah, very much so. And I remember a psychiatrist saying to me at the time, maybe part of your journey can be accepting that you're in a place or in a moment to show somebody else how to overcome. And at first I was really mad because I was like, that's not, I never asked to be anybody's inspiration. So I think for me, I kind of had to come to the point of understanding and realizing no matter what I do, no matter if I'm the best, most capable, most confident blind person ever, there's going to be people out there who minimize it, who minimize my accomplishments, who think, oh, she's so inspirational just because she's blind, and I can't control that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It feels like, you're up there, you're being worshipped because you're so together and whatever. And it's like, it makes me a little nauseous, but I don't know how it affects you when people start doing that.
I agree. But it was such a part of, like, it was so bringing me down, and I was so obsessed with trying to change people's perceptions that it was costing me dearly in terms of my mental health. So he kind of frustratingly, I guess at the time, but sort of told me, you don't get to control that, and you can't let you can't let other people's perceptions of your blindness control you because you can't change it.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, we really don't have that much control over what people think. They
No.
think we have only control over our thinking.
Yeah, exactly. So I had to learn to let that go, because no matter what I did, some people were going to view me as less than.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so that all we can do is just have unconditional acceptance of ourselves, which doesn't mean we don't try to be better. It just means that we accept where we are, which is we're not trained to do.
No, definitely not. And it was something that was so difficult for me to realize, that was such a huge part of what was keeping me stuck, was other people's perceptions of me, and trying to be perfect so that people wouldn't see me as weaker or an inspiration or, whatever. I agree with you. That kind of makes me sick, but I kind of had to realize that I can't fight those fights. I can better myself, but I can't fix what other people are going to think.
Is your book an audio format?
It is, yeah.
And how does one, is it in the bookstore, or how does one obtain a copy?
Yeah, so it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible has the audiobook, pretty much anywhere online where you buy books in print, ebook, or audiobook.
Plan for more recordings?
More recordings? I hope so. I'm not really doing a ton of that right now. I've kind of been in the middle of a lot of things and trying to feeling like I'm kind of pulled in 50 different directions right now, which is not very helpful for songwriting, I guess, because you're just kind of trying to like get through everything that you need to get through. So I have like 50 unfinished songs, and I want to get back into the studio. I really want to finish them, but I need to sort of clear some of the other stuff that I've been working on and really sit down and make that a priority, because I haven't been lately.
Yeah, that your creative muse is saying, "Hey, pay attention." Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I think sometimes when we're like, so much of even going through COVID, people were like, "Oh, but you have all this time to write." And a lot of creative people, myself included, were like, "We can't write. We're just trying to get through the day."
Right. Well, Heather, I'm so appreciative of you being on, and also your leadership in advocacy and helping to destigmatize. And I know that that's a full-time operation in and of itself.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and
it's a lot of work.
It's overwhelming because you change one person's mind, and then I think, especially for me on social media, one person is like, "Oh, this really helped me to understand better," and then you get 50 comments of people just saying like ignorant things, and it's like, "Oh, you clearly didn't learn anything." So it's really overwhelming, but we have to keep on fighting the good fight, I guess.
So, in other words, people can contact you through social media and, let you know what they think?
Absolutely, yeah.
Ooh, that can be dangerous.
It is really dangerous. It's really hard because sometimes, like, there was a couple of weeks ago that I was at a memorial for somebody that was really difficult and emotional, and I didn't check my phone for a couple hours, and then, after that emotional day, I checked my phone, and there were literally like hundreds of hate comments posted on this one video that I had made. And so it really depends on like my mindset in any given day. Sometimes I just have to like walk away from it, and I'm like, I can't engage with social media right now for my mental health. Good.
I'd like everyone to listen to that, because that can be a dangerous thing. And one of the things that I'm experiencing as I talk to you is your strength.
Thank you so much. It's a work in progress, but I like to think
it'll be a work in progress. But you have gone through a lot. Your strength in being able to share what you've been through can give a lot of strength to other people, and as you say, to have purpose, to bring purpose to your life, as well as to let people know that they can have purpose in their lives. It may be different from yours, but that's the message. And I'm not going to say inspirational. I'm going to say that just a reminder that we can all get better. The stigma around mental illness is just that, and needs to be removed. And we begin to see it, as something that happens, and that we can work through it with a little help from our friend, as the Beatles would say. But thank you for being on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Our pleasure. This is Bill Lundgren, your host of Blindsight. And what is the title of your book again?
It's called Holding On by Letting Go.
And we've been very fortunate to have Heather on our show today. And we hope that maybe we can, when your next record comes out, you say, "Hey, how about coming back on the show?"
That'd be great.
We wish you the best, and thank you.
Thank you so much.
And we wish the best to all our listeners. Thank you for participating. If thoughts of suicide are, if you're having them, don't hesitate to either go to your emergency room or to talk to someone and let them know how you're feeling. The call number 988 is available 24/7 for people in crises. There's no reason you have to continue to put up with the pain that you may be feeling. It'll be painful afterwards, but at least you know that is a sign of getting better. So, for all of us here at the Audio Information Network of Colorado, I bid all of you goodbye and tune in for our next episode. Thank you.